NFR Extra follows all your favorite cowboys, interviews legends of rodeo, and talks to the best of country music. Follow Nevada Caldwell, Ryland Bentley, and Steve Godert every week as they delve deep into the stories behind the road to gold in Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo. It's revealing, comedic, and sometimes emotional. Find it on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. NFR Extra. All dirt, all rodeo, all year.
You know, Dancing with the Stars came to me the first season, and it came across my desk as there's a new TV show where they take, you know, different celebrities from different walks of life and they teach them how to ballroom dance. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks, you know. And it sounded like the dumbest idea for a show that I'd ever heard of. And, you know, then it blows up and 25 million people a week are watching it. And they came back to me a couple years later. And, you know, this thing was so huge that I felt like being able to do it would bring so much attention to the sport and to cowboys and to rodeo and the bull riding. And so I always tried to do everything along those lines that I could, you know, when opportunities came to me.
NFR Extra, episode 107. ProRodeo Hall of Fame cowboy Ty Murray visits NFR Extra. There's not much Ty can't do, from riding the rankest stock in the world to dancing with the stars. He talks about the importance of stepping out of his comfort zone to represent the Western lifestyle, what makes Las Vegas so unique to the rodeo cowboy, Stetson Wright's impact on the sport of rodeo, and much, much more. Enjoy our conversation with Ty Murray on NFR Extra.
Finding your custom NFR experience in Las Vegas just got a lot easier. New this year is a resource that links you to every hotel offer. At nfrexperience.com/stay your way, you can shop for the hotel that best fits your plans. Everything is there. Information on viewing parties, concerts, price, transportation, location, and so much more. All in one place. Go to nfrexperience.com/stay your way. One Vegas. Stay your way.
Hi, I'm Boyd Paul Hamus, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
Basketball has Michael Jordan. Hockey's got Wayne Gretzky. The world of soccer holds a high place of honor for Brazilian footballer Pelé. While few cycling aficionados dispute the dominance of Lance Armstrong, on that same rarefied plateau, Ty Murray stands among these peers as the most accomplished rough stock athlete in the century-long history of the sport. A record-setting 7 all-around world championship titles under his belt, Murray has truly earned his nickname as the King of the Cowboys. In 1990, Sports Illustrated proclaimed, at age 21, Ty Murray is the best dang rodeo cowboy of them all. Since then, his single-minded dedication to solidifying that status has led to shattered records and more than a few injuries. Not only riding to the top of his field, but helping steadily build the mainstream popularity of rodeo. Dedication is a trait that sticks with Murray, who says, "I have loved the cowboy life, everything about it, since the day I was born. There's no other feeling on this earth like making great rides on great animals. I don't care about going down in history as a great bull rider or a bronc rider. I hope people will remember me as a great cowboy." Mr. Ty Murray, welcome to NFR Extra.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nevada.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a lot of folks that GMs, CEOs that run rodeos for the past probably 2 months just to focus on the how rodeo came back after all this craziness that we went through and just talking about their experiences. And we felt it was a good time to get back with the bread and butter of rodeo, the champions and the folks that make up this business. And so super excited to have you on. When we talk about NFR, we talk about Las Vegas, Thomas Mack Center. When it started to gain its kind of prominence in the 90s and it's carried on through, you're right in the middle of that. What makes those entities so special to the rodeo cowboy for yourself as well as every other individual that has won a gold buckle at the Thomas Mack Center?
It feels to me like the move to Las Vegas was a great move for the sport and for the National Finals Rodeo. And you know, it's become such a huge, iconic event that it's on par with the biggest sporting events in the world. And I think Vegas, being partners in that, I think is huge. I think that you guys have embraced us from the start, and it's been a great, it's been a great partnership from the word go, and you just see it get bigger, and you just see it get bigger every year.
Did you so coming from the side when you say Vegas and how that thing worked out, you're seeing all these other Cowboys before you, Donnie Gay, you had Tuff Hedeman, you had Joe Beaver, all these guys that were coming through in the 80s. How was it that played out for the other side, the hotels and things like that? Was that something that you started to see the difference in? Because in the 80s, that was kind of coming about, but for the 90s, it really started to establish itself, not just from our business, but for the Cowboys. Where did you do business? Where was Ty staying? Where were the things that you were doing during those 90s as we started to the rodeo business started to move up at that time?
The MGM Grand was just built, and at that time it was the biggest hotel in the world, and it had all these stats. And when they opened, they signed 3 athletes. They signed Shirley Leonard, Andre Agassi, and me. And so they were one of my big sponsors. A guy by the name of Dennis Finfrock, who ran the Grand Garden at that time, is who signed me. And they treated me like a world-class athlete, and they were great sponsors. And we've had a lot of great friendships and partnerships over the year. Our first couple PBR World Finals were there, and that sort of thing. I can remember when they were talking about moving the national finals from Oklahoma City to Las Vegas. I was 12 years old or something like that. And I think everybody's initial feeling was it was going to be horrible. And, Vegas wasn't a cowboy town. And at that time, for what it was, the NFR was well established in Oklahoma City. And to look back on it now, really to look back on it even a few years after it moved, it was just, I think, one of the greatest decisions that rodeo's ever made.
Yeah, you bring up Dennis Finfrock, and there's also some history as he ran the Thomas Mack Center, was there when the NFR came to
right.
Thomas Mack. So that, wow, had no idea that connection there for you. That's pretty awesome, man. Those are some heavy hitters, no pun there, with Sugar Ray and Andre.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a great sponsorship we used to do. Back then there was, now they've upped their involvement, but back then it was kind of a new thing to, have big autograph signings at the hotel. And I remember every night after the event, I would sit there and sign autographs for 2 hours, lined up out the door. And so it was a lot of fun. They gave me a really nice room too.
You hear the name Trevor Brazile, right? 20 plus championships. It's ungodly. Him and Tom Brady, they're probably in the same discussion when you kind of separate the two sports, right? Just what their accomplishments have done.
Yeah.
But what I think the interesting that's happening today, we got a young man by the name of Stetson Wright blazing a trail very similar to what you did. And I don't want to take away from Trevor, but this is me being the outsider always looking in for rodeo. It seems like stock gets a little bit more spotlight outside of the rodeo industry when it comes to world champions. And I think as you touched on it, what is that feeling when you look at a guy like Stetson, and what is the potential for him to come? I don't foresee Trevor ever getting on Dancing with the Stars or doing some other things, but I could see Stetson doing that. How does that always differentiate between the timed and the stocked events and these world champions becoming a little bit more separated when it comes to the spotlight outside of rodeo?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a number of things. Really, when you're looking at the all-around race, the timed events are equally as hard. They require equal as much practice and work and dedication, talent, athletic ability, physically, mentally athletic. So does golf in comparison to, say, maybe a running back in the NFL, So it's no question the timed events are physically, you're going to be able to have a longer career, for, most likely. And then if you look at like the popularity of the rough stock events, I think that's just the inherent danger and the wow factor. And, seeing a 150-pound man get on a 2,000-pound bull, people that don't know anything about it or don't care anything about it, they're going to want to step up to see that. And we're riding a bucking horse or whatever. So I feel like Larry Mahan was a excellent ambassador for the sport that helped raise the level of awareness of the sport of rodeo. I feel like I may have been able to help it somewhat throughout my career. And now you see like a Stetson Wright, this kid has the potential to set the world on fire for a long time. And he's just getting better, like he hasn't even got warmed up yet. We're just now seeing him really start to hit his stride in both events. And it seems like every time I watch the kid, I see him just getting better and better and better. So it's going to be really fun to sit back and watch him and see how far he can go and see how much awareness and publicity that he can bring to the sport, because that's so important. Even if you take bull riding, without people engaging in the sport and having a reason to care of what the outcome is, you don't have anything. And so even if it has an amazing wow factor, say like that the event of bull riding can have, without people having a vested reason and interest in caring what the outcome is, you don't really have anything. So I feel like, that it's important. I feel like Stetson is a lot like me in that he's this young baby-faced kid that's doing, arguably two of the rankest thing that a human being can do. It requires absolute 100% tough guy to do it. And I can remember, when I was 19 or 20 and there would be, say, a film crew or photographer out of New York City that would come to Stephenville or something to do a piece on me. And it was like they would show up and see me and they would be looking for, the cowboy. I think they had in their mind more of like a Clint Eastwood or a Marlboro Man type of looking person. And when it's a 19-year-old kid that looks like he's 12, I think it kind of takes people aback. And that's a similarity that I see with Stetson is, he's just this young baby-faced kid that is just dominating in a really tough sport.
You talk about the whole body thing, right? Like, just how did you, because you look, I know I'm pretty sure then there's some broken things inside your body and all the things you went through, but how did you take care of yourself in those runs? I mean, you stayed pretty healthy to compete like that. What did you do back then?
Well, for the most part, I think it's quite a few things. So I think for one, I was luckily born with a body type that was perfect for the rough stock events, bareback horses, saddle bronc horses, and bulls. So I feel really lucky there. I started getting serious about training in like the 7th grade. And that was something that was important to me. And I took serious from the 7th grade till to even still now. I feel like staying in good shape is just, there's so many benefits to it. And there's long-term benefits, there's short-term benefits. I know that when I was riding, the dedication of being in the gym and putting in the time and putting in the work and putting in the pain, those are ways that helped my confidence so much because you felt more prepared. And, if you trained 2 hours a day, that was 2 hours a day that you were dedicating to your craft and to your sport and to your trying to go after championships. I know that the more prepared I get, the luckier I get. So, that was something Casey Tibbs told me my rookie year. And I really found that to be true, that the more you love something, the easier it is to work at it. And the more you work at it, the easier it is to get really good at it and love it even more.
You're listening to NFR Extra with our guest, Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame cowboy, Ty Murray. Let's take a quick break.
December in Vegas. What does that mean? It's time for the Wrangler NFR and the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, the ultimate shopping and entertainment experience. Catch live shows on the Ariat Rodeo Live Stage, the Yeti Junior World Finals, autograph sessions, and much more. Open daily with free admission at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Visit NFRExperience.com for details. The Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas. It's all here.
Hi, I'm World Champion Jacob Crawley, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
Ty Murray here on NFR Extra. With JB Mooney doing what he's been doing, and we have potential to see something pretty unique for this NFR, where you have a PBR legend, iconic individual that's attached to another competing entity, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And again, we're starting talking about Stetson, but then right in the middle is Sage, who is this young stud for the past 7-6 years. What's your thought on like this meeting of these individuals in bull riding with JB Mooney, Sage, Stetson, and what the potential is for this 2021 regular National Finals rodeo?
Well, I think that's going to be super fun to watch. When talking about JB he's the kind of the epitome of the old school guy. He doesn't, I don't think he's ever done an exercise in his life. He smokes, he drinks, he's definitely kind of a throwback to the, to the idea maybe of the cowboy from a while back. And, there's still some guys that are like that. I think it's going to be fun to watch those guys get to go head to head. I think I would have liked to have seen him be able to go head to head while JB was in the prime of his career, the way those guys are. JB's he's a old man in the game now. And he's still very good. And he still has, he's one of those guys that you never count out because he can make magic happen. And I feel like he still has that in him. It's probably not as surefire as it used to be, like when he was more in his prime, but his gunslinger, type of attitude is still something that can be very, very dangerous because he definitely lives for the big moments when all the eyes are upon him. And to me, that's the mark of a great athlete in any sport, is the guys that you look at that are like the Michael Jordans or the Wayne Gretzky's, that when the pressure is the greatest is when they perform the best. And I think all of those guys fall into that category pretty much. So, that's what you want to see. So, sometimes you see really talented guys that when all the chips are down, they tighten up and choke a little bit. And those three guys aren't really that type of guy.
No. And I'm always fascinated because, we've had PBR here for zillions of years, just like NFR, and been a big fan of JB, pretty good friends of Dale Brisby, which I know they're buddies. And I've always followed JB, right? I'm not the confessed big rodeo guy, right? I work in this industry, but I follow him just because he's fascinating, right? My dad, he's similar to my dad, very Clint Eastwooded, as you were saying, like style to him. But I keep on thinking about going into this run, right? Pending he heals up and everything's good. I mean, which you guys tend to do that. You can have a punctured lung or a spleen or whatever, and just next week you're riding, as I've been accustomed to finding out. There's got to be such a mental part, right, for JB going into this event where it's like 10 days. I mean, like, like he just comes in and does his thing and somehow is able to get his body there. Because I've watched him where he's super injured, he rides, and then when he gets dumped off, he can't even get up, right? But for some odd reason, they were just plant him on that bull, and he did his thing. How would you, back in the day, and for these guys, and it probably hasn't changed, how would you mentally prepare for the National Finals rodeo? I mean, there's got to be a massive mental approach to this.
Well, the biggest thing for me every year was I tried to not change one thing. I always tried to dance with the one who brought me, and I have 7 number 1 NFR back numbers. So what I was doing all year was good enough to put me at number 1. So I always felt like it was my biggest job to try to just keep doing what I was doing. And, pressure is I think everybody in every sport experiences it, but it's not a real thing. It's man-made and self-inflicted. And so when you take guys like JB, like Sage, like Stetson, these guys are all legit. I feel like they're in the event that, well, really all of the events are a big part mental. And, these guys are all veterans already of, being able to deal know how to deal with that. And, it's different for every guy. I traveled with guys that, man, they changed everything when they went to the NFR, in their mind, and some guys didn't change a thing, and, kind of all over the spectrum, everything in between. But that was the biggest thing for me is just, I didn't get a new bull rope before the NFR, and I didn't get new stirrup leathers in my saddle and do all that new rigging, all that stuff. I didn't do that. What was working for me, getting me to the NFR is what I just carried right through and just kept trying to do that. And, I think that's the hardest thing about if you're going to talk about like coaching in a sport like this. It's such a big mental game because, if you're using the bull riding as an example, you're an underdog every time for the most part. So to be able to have the confidence and the cockiness, if that's what you want to call it, and the swagger and the guts and the swing for the fences type of mindset, it's almost like you have to learn how to trick your brain. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're going in there to fight Mike Tyson in his prime every time. And you got to go in there seriously believing that you can win, because the guys that don't feel that way, you can see it immediately. I feel like I can see it immediately. You have the guys that scoot up on their rope, and when they nod their head, they're ready to go to whatever level that animal takes it to. And you see other guys that are like they're going to, put their toe in the water or something and kind of see how things go. Those are the guys that are always going to be at the bottom of the pack. That's the thing that, the thing that I see as when you get to the top of any sport, you find out everybody's pretty damn good, but there has to be something that separates. When you look at world champions, they're all pretty different. So if you want to compare JB and Sage, they're polar opposite of each other. But the thing that they have that's the same is they both have a confidence and a cockiness and a swagger and a belief in themselves that they can do it. And I feel like that's the biggest element in any sport that you're talking about, because, like if you look at the NFL, for example, every guy playing in the NFL is a top college recruit that, he's the best guy from his division. And so everybody is pretty darn good. It just comes down to the ones that really believe how good they are and just have that, that overwhelming sense of confidence. And so that goes back to like my preparation and my training and all that stuff. All that was geared towards giving me that confidence, because when I truly had that confidence, I felt like I could ride anything.
You know what's tough about your guys' sport is that, if you take football, for instance, right, and take that whole mindset, you can make some mistakes, but still make up for it, right? Because you got all this time, right? Like, yeah, right, for you, but you got,
and you have teammates that might cover for your mistake too.
100%. But for you guys, you have an entire day that comes down to 8 seconds, right? Like that, people can't even, there needs to be more books about the mindset, what you all go through compared to because there's so many books about, quarterbacks and pitchers and things like that. But again, you have 24 hours in a day, but only that 8 seconds truly matters for that day and those 10-day runs, Right.
And so all sports have the pressure of winning or losing, or, the fans, the contracts, what stage you're on, being behind, trying to come back, all those pressures that an athlete faces. Every professional sport has that. In bull riding, to take it to a complete other level is you literally have the factor of living and dying every time you do it. So I think that's something that takes it to a whole other level that most sports don't go to. And I know there's other sports that are dangerous, but there is not another sport that's as dangerous as this sport. For me, it was that's where that confidence matters so much, because you're going to work every day and you're doing a job that you could easily die at every single day that you do it. Being able to compartmentalize that fact and still be able to be focused and fluid in your best self every time you nod your head, that you've got to figure out a way in your brain for that to all work. And that's kind of the point I was trying to make earlier. If you talk about coaching this sport or coaching any sport for that matter, what makes a great coach is somebody that can find what it is that mentally is going to make that guy at his best. And that's, that's not an easy task. You can't even, it's hard to teach. It's hard to write a book about or anything, because I feel like everybody gets there mentally in a different way. But regardless, you've got to figure out how to get there.
All right, let's transition just like you did. You had a great run, NFR or PRCA, PBR. Then you got in front of the camera. How was that transition, and how long did it take till you felt the confidence to just get in front of the camera? I mean, because it's a whole different confidence, right? You're on a microphone camera, and you're speaking to millions of people.
Yeah, I think that after you win 9 world titles, you at that point are pretty comfortable on camera, just because of all of the interviews and the stuff I'd done on television and shows. And so, at that point I'd been on camera a lot, and I'd talked on camera a ton, and it wasn't really that nerve-wracking as far as, I didn't have a stage fright or camera shyness or anything like that. I think that the hardest part for me, it was 2 things. So I feel like the traditional rodeo announcer, that's what they have to go off of whenever they're trying to commentate for a telecast in our sport. So for me and the work that I did, I felt that it was important to analyze what you're seeing and not sugarcoat it, and not, I think a lot of people thought that, I've heard people say that I'm, that I was too critical and too blunt and stuff like that. But, I felt like that I was trying to, especially like in the CBS stuff that I do for the PBR, you're not going to be considered a real sport ever if you're on the hype rodeo announcer, taking that mentality to mainstream television and the mainstream television audience. If you're Tom Brady and you go out and you throw 5 interceptions, they're not talking about what a great family man you are and what a great person you are and how much charity work you did, and for me, I felt like I just tried to be as honest. I don't have an axe to grind against anybody. So I was never trying to run anybody down. I was never trying to make myself, sound like I was better than what I was. I was just hired as an expert in the field to give my analysis of what's happening in the arena. And I always tried to be just as honest as I could be. So that was something that I feel like was difficult, and I maybe took some arrows over, but it's still something that I feel is very important. I feel like to be a legitimate sport, especially a television property sport, you're not out to crucify anybody or really even make anybody look bad, but you've got to call a spade a spade. So that was something that I felt like, that I tried to work at and make better. And the biggest challenge is it's not natural to talk about anything that much, so especially like if you're taking the bull riding for an example, you're talking about the same 8 seconds, literally millions of times. And so trying to constantly have some information that people might be wondering about, or give them some insight that maybe they didn't have, or those sort of things. After you've said it, 10 million ways, one of the hardest things is to be able to stay fresh in that and keep bringing a really upbeat vibe to something that you've just you feel like you've talked it into the ground. And that just goes with the territory, and you have to accept that and just look at it, every time you sit down, just look at it with an open mind and try to bring as much of your expertise to the sport as you can.
And that totally makes sense. And coming from the media business, I think there's 2 perspectives that you don't want to be everyone's friend, right? So I think the notion that either you're loved or hated, and as long as you got either one of those, you're doing something right. Like you're honestly throwing it out there and you're breaking it down in a way that needs to be heard. My goodness. I mean, when you've won as much as you've done, you need to share that information, right? That's only good for the fan out there listening, that what they're seeing and why this went wrong or why this happened, or,
right.
I mean, that's so important to that.
I feel like that, I feel like that goes a long ways in what I was saying about they have to have a reason to care. And whenever you can point out things to look for or give some information that's going to make it more interesting to the fan, those are the type of things that give people a reason to care and a reason to have a vested interest in the outcome of the game. So, I feel like that's your job. Anytime you're talking about a sport to millions of people, you've got to be giving them the nuggets that make them have a reason to care about what they're seeing.
They don't care. They're not they're not watching. They're not coming to sit in the stands. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. I always compare it to like freestyle, motorcycle jumping. These guys will hit a 100-foot ramp and do 3 backflips and land with no hands standing on the seat, and that's unbelievably incredible. I mean, you look at it and you're just like, no way could a human do that. And then they do it. But for a lot of people, after you watch 4 or 5 of them go, then it all just kind of the same thing. And without that vested interest, you're not gonna just keep watching it off of the wow factor. And that's the thing that I think we have to remember in our sport, that the popularity of sport goes so much. It's the drama of the sport that people stick around for, and having that vested interest. And I really want the blue team to beat the red team, or whatever it may be. They've got to have that reason to care and feel like they're going along on the journey. They're not just watching a spectacle.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So let's talk about this is NFR Extra, and our guest today, Ty Murray. NFR Extra follows Cowboys, talks to legends and country stars, and finds the stories that make up the season that leads to the annual showdown in December. Follow me, Nevada Caldwell, Brylan Bentley, and Steve Goder as we delve deep into the stories in and behind the road to gold. Listen to NFR Extra on Rural Radio, channel 147 on Sirius XM every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, with a re-air Tuesday in the same time slot. NFR Extra, all dirt, all rodeo, all year.
Hi, I'm Haley Kinsel, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
Ty Murray is here on NFR Extra. You're a great ambassador for this sport. Rattle off some big pop culture names here: Dancing with the Stars, WWE, HGTV, other entities. What's it been like, you representing something outside of the rodeo industry? And the other thing I want to add to this is, what's nice about today is when someone sees you in any of these entities I just spoke of, what's nice about the internet today is they can go in and type in Ty Murray, and all of a sudden they'll get this plethora of information about your your legacy and everything else. I'm not saying that you're probably carrying this weight on your shoulders, and you're a pretty good ambassador for this sport. How's that felt, jumping into a lot of those pop culture world?
When I was 13 years old, Larry Mahan took me under his wing. Larry Mahan was a 6-time world champion all-around cowboy. He was my idol growing up. I went and lived with him for a summer. He never taught me one thing about riding, but he tried to instill in me the importance of being able to talk about what it is you do and embrace the media. He started grooming me for that when I was 13. I'm so, looking back, I'm so lucky and thankful that he did, because when I was a kid, all I cared about was riding bucking horses and bulls, and that was it. If it didn't have something to do with being a cowboy, I didn't have much time for it or care. So to have that influence in my life early on was so good for me in so many ways. I think that helps the sport whenever you have somebody that is able to go outside of our small circle and reach people outside of that. And so, Dancing with the Stars came to me the first season, and it came across my desk as there's a new TV show where they take, different celebrities from different walks of life, and they teach them how to ballroom dance. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks, and it sounded like the dumbest idea for a show that I'd ever heard of. And, then it blows up and 25 million people a week are watching it. And they came back to me a couple years later. And, this thing was so huge that I felt like being able to do it would bring so much attention to the sport and to cowboys and to rodeo and to bull riding. And so I always tried to do everything along those lines that I could. When opportunities came to me, from Walker, Texas Ranger to there used to be a show about a sports agent called Arliss to CSI to Punked to, there was the High-Low Country, the movie. There were so many opportunities that would come to me. And, not only were they fun experiences, but I think they were things that I was doing that Larry Mahan taught me to do. That I just feel like, at the end of the day, whenever you're helping your sport, you're helping your livelihood, you're helping your world, you're helping your friends, you're helping the fans. I think that's something that always pretty much felt important to me throughout my whole career. And really it still does to this day. I mean, that's part of why we're on a podcast together right now.
Absolutely. When you think about everything that you've accomplished, and you still got a lot more to accomplish outside of the dirt, and you think about this legacy that you've created, I mean, what's something you want people to remember you by? I mean, is there anything that crosses your mind, your heart?
Well, I just hope that, and I think this is what I wanted from early on was, I think that rodeo, for when it really burns in you, I think that it's you set personal benchmarks for yourself. And, my benchmark that I set when I was a little kid was Larry Mahan was my idol. He was the greatest rough stock rider to ever come along at that time. And so my whole goal, my whole benchmark that I set for myself was to break his record. And, I was able to do that. What wasn't easy for sure. I missed 3 years right in the prime of my career with some injuries when I was tied with him. And it took me 3 years to overcome those injuries and be able to actually break the record. But when I look at a legacy, I've just tried to be a good cowboy my whole life. And it doesn't matter if it's, ranch cowboy work or rodeo cowboy work, all of the events, I did every event all the way through college. It's just something that's, has always fascinated me. It's something that I always want to do. All the guys that I looked up to when I was a little kid were great cowboys. And so that's something that I've always worked at. It's something that I still work at, here on the ranch. I've got the ranch of my dreams that I bought 25 years ago. And, still making good horses is something that I pride myself on and something that I'm, still working at every day, trying to be a better horseman, trying to be a better rancher, trying to be a better cowman. Because when you look at all the facets of being a cowboy, there's a million of them. There's so many different skills and there's so many different pieces of knowledge that you need that it feels to me like it's endless and something that you can work on your whole life. And basically for 51 years, that's what I've been doing. I hope that when people think of me, if you're wanting to talk about it from a legacy standpoint, I hope they say, well, that guy right there was about as cowboy as they get. And, and you want to be remembered as a good person. And I think that people like to see you do good a lot more when you're a good person. And now it's to the point where, when you have kids, it really changes your perspective on life. So that's important to me too, that one of these days my kids say that, my dad was a good man, a tough man, an honest man. He always did what he said he was going to do, and you could count on him, and he was a good cowboy. If my kids, if they go on to feel that way, that will be, I don't know that you could ask for much better than that.
Yeah, I mean, your body of work totally speaks for itself, Ty. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's just what you've done from that. And then I think the sweet part is, for gentlemen like yourself, you get to keep defining that as you go, right? I mean, as you spoke of Dancing with the Stars, you're like, why would I ever do that, right? There's the cowboy and you're pulling it back. But then you look at, you had to reinvent yourself and go do that. And then I could only imagine there's more coming down the road, that these opportunities are just going to keep coming in weird ways. But like, you see the benefit in it of, what you represent for this industry. So it's awesome.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. It's when you have kids, it just kind of changes. It's funny because my career kind of feels like another life to me now. And, it wasn't an accident that I didn't have a wife and didn't have kids during my rodeo career because I didn't feel like you could go do the world's most dangerous sport every day with a baby waiting at home for you. Mm-hmm. You know, my traveling partner, Cody Lambert, he always had a wife and baby at home when we were going hard. And I would look at that and I'd just be like, there's no way, you know, there's no way. And really, I think if you asked him, he would tell you it was definitely hard. You know, it was hard being away from home all the time. It was hard, you know, giving it everything you've got when it's getting pretty hairy, you know, when you know you've got to be around to take care of that wife and baby. And that was something that I watched him struggle with, and I didn't want to struggle with that. And then so you know, after my career, you know, having a wife and having kids it just changes what you feel like is important. You know, what mattered to me more than anything the first 32 years of my life was to be able to win 7 world all-around championships, and the sport of rodeo was all I thought about all day long, every day. I didn't have to try to think about it. That's just how it worked. And now where I'm at in life and being a dad and being a husband, it just feels like another life, you know, like my rodeo life was a different life that I wouldn't be willing to do any of it now. No part of it. I wouldn't want the travel. I wouldn't want the danger of it. I wouldn't want you know, it just doesn't matter to me now the way it did then. You know, there's different now, you know, I don't feel like I have really any mountains left to climb. And, you know, I don't have really a lot of benchmarks for myself other than trying to be a great husband and a great dad. You know, I'm just trying to make sure that me and my wife and my kids are doing everything we can to really enjoy the fruits of my past labor, all the wonderful life experiences and opportunities that we have. And, you know, that's what feels as important to me now as my riding career felt to me back then. But it's just funny how much that it can change. And growing up in the sport and being a 5th generation cowboy, I knew this wasn't something that you did till you were 65 and then they gave you a gold watch. You know, I mean, I knew it was something that by the time you're 32, you're an old man. And that was when I retired, was when I was 32. I haven't missed it for a day. You know, maybe part of that is because I was able to hit the benchmarks that I set for myself. So I feel like I got it out of my system. But, you know, it's where I'm at now with my family. It feels just as exciting and even a little scary and a little dangerous sometimes, a lot like the sport. You know, raising kids is definitely not for the faint of heart. And, you know, it feels like who and what I am now.
NFR Extra with our guest, 7-time all-around world champ, Ty Murray. We'll wrap up our conversation after the break.
The Yeti Junior World Final. He is back in Vegas. From December 2nd through 11th, the next generation of rodeo stars will compete at the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, held daily inside the Wrangler Rodeo Arena. Visit NFRExperience.com for details.
Looking for tickets to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo? StubHub is the official secondary and fan-to-fan site of the rodeo. Fans can buy and sell their tickets through a safe and secure online marketplace. Visit NFRExperience.com.
Hi, I am Benny Butler, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
NFR Extra with Ty Murray. You know, when we get to dive in to champions, right? And when I say champions, folks that have won multiple times, you've had to go through a lot of different kind of ups and downs, and the stories and kind of how you're formed along that way creates a really either good human being or just a really just tough, you know, like inside they're just been through so much. It's hard to share a lot, but yeah, you're an awesome cowboy, man. You got one hell of a legacy, man. And congratulations coming up here at the 2021 NFR. I think it's going to be awesome. Get you back out there on the spotlight and fans will go crazy and being at Vegas, like it's gonna be a special moment.
It's an award that I'm very excited about. You know, especially to go in number 2 right behind my idol, Larry Mahan. So that's very special. And you know, I couldn't be more honored or more humbled and appreciative. You know, whenever you pour your heart and soul into something the way I did this sport for the first 32 years of my life, I think the thing that drives you every day is proving it to yourself and striving for the benchmarks that you set for yourself. You know, I think that's the biggest driver. I don't think that at that time when you're going through it, I don't think that you're looking at so much, say, like legacy or Hall of Fames or what kind of awards, you know, that may be waiting for you down the line. But it does feel very satisfying to get recognized for pouring your heart and soul. I poured everything I had into it. You know, I didn't have anything left to pour into it. So, you know, winning those 7 all-arounds was something that was important to me since I was a little boy. And so it just drove me every day because I was so bent on being able to prove to myself that I could do it. And I think that's my personality type. I think that's I don't even know what you call it, but you know, that's definitely kind of the way my personality type works, is when I decide that I want to really do something, I'll go to whatever lengths, you know, it requires to do it whenever I'm really interested in something like that. So to be able to be recognized for these type of things at this point in my life is very exciting. And like I said, being able to go as the second guy right behind Larry, that's very special.
I mean, I wish December was here a lot sooner.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. The energy is going to be electric. Cool to have Ty back in the house. It's going to be awesome, man. And
well, there's nothing like the National Finals Rodeo. There's just nothing like it. And so, you know, it's our Indianapolis 500, Super Bowl, NBA Finals, World Series. I mean, you know, it definitely is. And it is for the fans of the sport as well. There's not a bigger, more anticipated, exciting gathering of the Western sports world anywhere. There's nothing that even comes close to it. And competing on that stage is just the best. You know, I've been asked a million times what's my favorite rodeo, and there's no question it's the NFR. I mean, it ain't even, you know, there aren't even other ones in the running. And so, you know, to be able to go to that place where it's packed with the very best fans, and the whole town is packed with the very best fans. I mean, the amount of fans that are there to watch it is small in comparison to the amount of fans that are there, period. To be able to ride in that little intimate arena where there's 20,000 people stacked on top of you, and the energy in there, and the fact that you're going up against the very best guys on the very best stock. I mean, that's everything that you could ever want if this sport is something that burns in you. You know, I have nothing but the best memories of competing there. And it's so fun now to watch, like, the young guys that you see a lot of yourself in that are, you know, going and getting to compete there. It might be their first time, or it might be their third or fourth time, but you know, the excitement that they feel being able to be in that position. Definitely something you dream about when you're a little kid, and, you know, you play it over and over in your head a million times, or pretending in your backyard. And so then the first time that you really get to be there and really do it is just, you feel like you're bursting with excitement.
Yeah. And I mean, what a special time it's going to be, right? I mean, we're coming back. I mean, granted, I know we did it in Texas. The rodeo athletes got paid last year, which was awesome, in a very bizarro year, but
yeah,
the energy is going to be through the roof, man. And
when you talk about that, I think that shows the resilience and the grit of the whole Cowboy Nation. You know, when you look at what the NFR was able to do last year in being able to divide and conquer, and what the PBR was able to do in a crazy year, in a crazy world where everything in the world was shut down and people weren't making a living, and you saw the resilience and the grit of the whole Cowboy culture come through, and in what the sports were how they found a way, you know, and that's something that I feel proud to be a part of. And, you know, you can't, I think the whole world saw that laying down and dying wasn't the way to go. You have to adjust and keep moving forward. And I feel like that's something that our special world was able to do.
No doubt about it. It's, I mean, without question. I mean, what an amazing time. Well, I got to tell you, Ty, this was fantastic having you on, man. This is, I know it's going to be well received. Great stories. A couple things in here. I mean, doing research on you, I didn't, you know, the whole Dennis Finfrock thing. I didn't know about the Sugar Ray and Legacy. That's awesome, man. Some big hitters. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for taking the time. What a great guest, man. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. It was good talking to you, Nevada. Look forward to seeing you when I get out there.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thanks for taking the time.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right, Ty. Later, man.
Okay. Bye.
Many thanks to Ty Murray for visiting NFR Extra.
Want to experience more of NFR? Then visit nfrexperience.com. And we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a big 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.
NFR Extra.
All dirt.
All rodeo.
All year.
Gotta make it out to Vegas, where the big boys roam, with the rovers and the racers and the bulls and the broncs, and the ladies in the skin-tight wranglers and the cowboy hats.